Tony DeFrank. I'm back with our first Covering Classic Cars of 2024. I'm here with good customer and friend Charles McClendon. He has let us come hang out with him in his awesome, I don't want to call it a man cave, I feel like it's more like a showroom, but thank you for coming and participating in our March 2024 photo shoot.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
I appreciate your interest in my vehicles.
Well, your cars are beautiful, and we'll talk a little bit about the van here, because that's not like a California car cover, catalog cover vehicle normally. Usually it's Mustangs, Camaros, muscle cars, hot rods. But if you've gotten our catalog in the past, I believe, it was 2018, we shot a couple, three of your beautiful Chevrolets.
Yes.
And since then you, I guess, created this shop here.
Yes, and two of those red Chevrolets are in the background there, behind the Mustang. I think you can probably see them.
Yeah, and we'll see, so those will be some background photos so people can see them. And also if you receive our catalog, often you might see some of these other cars like this Mustang in our catalog, because besides having beautiful cars, Charles is local, so it always works out well for photo shoots, and he's always willing to help us. So I guess before we get into the Econoline, let's talk about your Mustang. What besides the color that catches everyone's eye, what makes it cool?
What makes it cool? What makes it cool is the 1965 Mustang. And my very first car when I was 15 was a 1965 Mustang. So for me, that's the coolest factor, because when I get behind the wheel, even though this one is very customized, it kind of reminds me of when I was 15. And this car, this 65 is a fastback. My first car was a convertible. The fastback has a Martz independent front suspension with a shock tower delete. It's got a Martz 4-link in the back. It's got a 347 stroker. Produces about 492 horsepower, and it's got an automatic transmission, which when I first
That's not usually your style. I'm going to interrupt you.
When I first started collecting cars, got to be a stick shift. And then coming home from car shows on the 405 in July, it's 100 degrees, and you're clutching up the hill. It's like, I got to start getting some automatics. So this was actually my first automatic. So
I was going to say
that was a very cool thing about it.
Yeah.
Plus, it has air conditioning. So.
Well, I was going to say, every time you see one of your cars, it seems like the paint's killer. They got big motors, and they got manual transmissions. So this has, I guess, checks 2 out of 3 boxes.
Yes.
But it's still a beautiful car. And what color orange is that? Yeah.
That is House of Colors Tangelo. It's a 4-stage pearl paint job, and it's absolutely beautiful. It looks good in shade. It looks good in the direct sunlight, and it looks wonderful underneath these lights. It's probably, of all my cars, it's my favorite paint.
Yeah, no, it's outstanding. And then when we had shot this beginning of the year for the catalog, some of the pages inside our catalog, and you mentioned, I'll bring the Mustang. I'm like, Mustang? I know Charles just red Chevrolets. And so when you brought this out, like orange Mustang, but as soon as it rolled in, we were like, wow, this thing, you get it under the lights, and it just, that, and then the glass, and then the two-tone interior, the thing it just pops. It gets a lot of attention.
It's got a full custom interior. The back seat has been deleted, and it's a custom fiberglass shell in the rear, which is upholstered to match the seats, and it has the subwoofer. It has actually 2 10-inch subwoofers, 2 6x9s, and a subwoofer amplifier, and then a normal amplifier. It's about 1,500 watts of power underneath all that fiberglass.
Yeah. I know when we were taking some photos, I noticed the speaker setup, but I feel like the stereo is pointless in this car, because when it's running, it's loud.
Yes. Oh, the stereo is still louder.
It's still louder?
Yes,
okay.
Yes, the stereo's very loud. And being at my age, it's very hard to turn around and look behind me. I actually had a backup camera put in it as well, so I think that's a very nice feature.
No, it's beautiful. And then when you pop the hood, there's a lot of polished aluminum and a lot of chrome. So what's been done to the motor?
It's a 347 stroker with a Zoops polished billet serpentine system, and it's got an oversized radiator, electric fan. It's got basically just it's got a very nice March billet air cleaner. It's a March revolver air cleaner, and it really sets the engine off.
It looks good. Stance is good. The billet wheels, you got Willwood brakes. Like it's just. I'm sure it's a lot of fun to drive.
It is. It is. It's kind of a race car, though. It's not a cruiser. You know?
And so pretty much the only thing in common with this and your first Camaro were they're both 1965. Is that what we boiled it down to?
Well, they're Mustang.
And Mustang. That's
Yeah, they're both 65 Mustangs. Yes.
Cool. Well, it's a beautiful car, and I'm glad we could showcase it. And then the next thing, I think I've been, on our catalog team for, I feel like almost 20 years. And I don't think, and I can't recall shooting an Econo van. So tell us about the Econoline. Tell us what attracted you to, how did you come across it? And is it just your love of shag carpeting?
Once again, we go back to the 70s. My second car was a 1966 Ford Econoline van. And most people have probably never seen an Econoline, much less driven one, but when you're driving an Econoline, it's a totally different perspective because you're actually sitting on top of the front wheel, and the windshield is about 15 inches in front of your face, and it's just a whole different feel. And my first Econoline van, I bought it, and my buddy and I went cross country after we graduated high school. We drove all around the country. Drove 15,000 miles over a 3-month period of time. We hit 43 states. This was back in the 70s when that was the cool thing to do. And,
So you and your buddy, cross country, Econoline van in the 70s.
In the 70s.
And I don't think you want to tell anyone stories from that trip, I'm assuming. I think those are all memories you keep to yourself, I'm sure.
Especially now that I'm married.
I can imagine just everything going on there, but I'm sure
back in the
fantastic
70s,
times.
Yes.
I'm sure you had a great time.
It was the commune in Casper, Wyoming. But, we won't go into detail.
Well, I'm sure, and when we were talking about taking this thing to car shows, and you have some beautiful resto mods, but you take this thing out, this thing gets the attention, this thing wins the trophies, just because it brings back so many memories for people. These old buses, the Econoline buses, the VW buses, they bring back so many memories, and then the young and old, they just love them.
Yes, that's one thing. The kids love it, the people my age love it, even the middle-aged people love it. It's just, there's so many memories associated with it for the older people, and the kids just think it looks cool because they've never seen anything like that. And I get a lot of questions, and the biggest one, the most popular question is, what is that? Because people have never seen them. They quit making them many, many years ago. And they're very rare. There are very, very few of them out on the road today because it was Econoline, which means it was the cheapest truck and van you could buy, and they were work trucks. And the gardeners, carpenters, plumbers, they were always parked outside. They were abused, beat up. Most of them are in junkyards, pile up.
And then it was an entry-level car, so I'm sure that back when in the 70s you weren't babying that thing. It was going cross country hard.
No, and then when I got back, I had a catering business. And I used it to cater weddings and parties and stuff. And then after that, I went I used to sell flowers. I had kids working for me selling flowers on the street corner. And I'd load it up with kids and flowers and would go basically sell our flowers on the weekends all over the valley.
That's awesome. And then so how did you? So now this one is remarkably different than a couple of the ones you had in the past. So what kind of condition did you find this in? We talked about the custom front end. Well, now you did some, we'll show some shots, some photos and video. It has the full Econoline treatment. It has like the shag carpeting. It has like it's like day bed in the back with the wood panel roof.
When I bought it, the paint, it was fresh paint, very nice paint job, and the paint and body were done. The inside was pretty much bare. It was just bare metal. It had very economical seats in it. It was just, inside it was just a driver quality van. And then what I did is I added paneling and wrapped it in orange microfiber and put in orange shag carpeting, added custom seats. It basically made it look like the hippie van of the 70s. The van although I had one, I never had one fixed up as nice as this. It was the van I always wanted when I was 15.
Well, and you know what? It's like, I feel like every interview, it's the same thing. It's like, you always want what was cool in high school. Yeah. And that's what you're doing. Everyone, when you work hard and you're successful, you always want to go back to have the stuff you couldn't afford when you're younger, or a nicer version of that stuff. Like, oh, yes. And that's what we're all chasing that same thing. Yes. And I think it's so cool.
Yes, as a matter of fact, the first cars I got were Chevys. My very first classic car was a '59 Corvette, and then I bought a '57 Bel Air, and then a '71 Chevelle. And those were all the cars that I wished I could afford when I was in high school, but I was stuck with the Mustang and the Econoline. And after I purchased those, that's when I realized, what I really wanted was to go back to my original cars. It's like it brings back the feeling. I can get, especially in the Econoline van, I can go down the highway and it takes me back to many, many years ago. I can remember the feeling of driving that van down the highway.
Yeah, well, it's super cool, and we'll try to do our best to show out to everyone like just how great your cars are, and an incredible collection. And I appreciate you taking your time to let us see the shop. And then you don't just own these cars, you like to tinker with them, you like to work on them.
Yes.
So on the next door over, if we go I guess stage left here, you work on a lot of stuff here.
Yes.
So what are you tinkering with right now?
Right, well, I just finished a '67 Mustang convertible. It was in decent shape when I purchased it, but the paint was really rough. I had a paint correction expert come in and color sand it and bring the paint back to life. And the engine, I made a lot of changes to the engine. I put in a new carburetor, a new fuel pump, new distributor, new fan, new battery, new instrument cluster, headlight switch, just all the things that were broken and didn't work, or looked like they were in rough shape. So basically, I wanted it to look new. So if you open the hood on that car, it looks like it did back in 1967.
And that's the one car that we talked about. We wanted to make it look like it did back in '60. It's not a resto-mod. It's more of just like
that car
just a cruising.
Is pretty much an original. It looks very original. I put in a new alternator, chrome alternator, and a new chrome AC compressor, and those are really the only two components of the engine which were not stock back in the day. Everything else I tried to keep original, but I just had to have a little chrome in there, just because that's
a little something.
That's just me.
Well, everything you do, and we'll show some photos on the blog and show some extra clips of the shop here. But I think it seems like everything that you do is well done. It's it looks good and drives well, goes pretty fast. So you're pretty particular about it.
Yes, I'm kind of a perfectionist.
Yeah. Well, and your cars seems like everyone you bring out's an award winner. So you do a good job with it.
I do pretty well at the shows, but I don't bring them out to the shows unless they're done very, very nicely.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day. It's we're working for our March catalog. Actually, it's the middle of December, so it's the holiday season, and so I'm glad you could sit down with a few minutes with us and talk about your cars.
Anytime.
Yeah, I always appreciate your willingness to help. Rick, Connor, myself, and we had him moving around cars in here all morning, so we appreciate that. So I guess, and we'll help you when we're done here too, if you need to get him back in line. We won't leave you hanging. But thank you for your time, Charlie. Appreciate it. And again, if you want to see more about Charlie's cars, check out our blog. And again, Tony with covering classic cars and California Car Cover. And thanks for the time.
Thank you, Tony.
Anytime. Appreciate it, Charlie.